Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Masood Hassan Siddiqui from Department of Geography, Jamia Millia Islamia. Today we will be discussing about GPS errors and biases. GPS pseudo range and carrier phase measurements are both affected by several types of random errors and biases. These errors may be classified as those originating at the satellites, those originating at the receiver, and those that are due to signal propagations, that is called the atmospheric refraction. The figure 1 shows the various types of errors and the biases in GPS recording. The errors originating at the satellite includes ephemeris or orbital errors, satellite clock errors, and the effect of selective availability. The latter was intentionally implemented by the US Department of Defense to degrade the autonomous GPS accuracy for security reasons. It was, however, terminated at midnight Eastern Daylight Time on May 1, 2000. The errors originated at the receivers include receiver clock errors, multipath errors, receiver noise, and antenna's phase center variations. The signal propagation errors include the delay of the GPS signals as it passes through the ionospheric and tropospheric layers of the atmosphere. In fact, it is only in a vacuum-free space that the GPS signals travel or propagates at the speed of light. In addition to the effect of these errors, the accuracy of these computed GPS positions is also affected by the geometric locations of the GPS satellites as seen by the receiver. The more spread out of the satellites are in the sky, the better the obtained accuracy. Let us talk about the GPS ephemeris errors. Satellite positions as a function of time, which are included in the broadcast satellite navigation messages, are predicted from the previous GPS observation at the ground control stations. Typically overlapping 4-hour GPS data spans are used by the operational control systems to predict fresh satellite orbital elements for each 1-hour period. As might be expected, modeling the forces acting on the GPS satellites will not be perfect, which causes some errors in the estimated satellite positions known as ephemeris errors. Nominally, an ephemeris error is usually in the order of 2 meters to 5 meters and can reach up to 50 meters under selective availability. According to the range errors, due to the combined effect of the ephemeris and the satellite clock errors is of the order of 2.3 meters. An ephemeris error for a particular satellite is identical to all GPS users worldwide. However, as different users see the same satellite at different view angles, the effect of the ephemeris error on the range measurements and consequently on the computed position is different. This means that combining the measurements of two receivers simultaneously tracking a particular satellite cannot totally remove the ephemeris error. User of the short separations, however, will have an almost identical range error due to the ephemeris error, which can essentially be removed through differencing the observations. For relative positioning, the following rules of the thumb gives a rough estimate of the effect of the ephemeris error on the baseline solution. Some applications such as studies of the crustal dynamics of the earth requires more precise ephemeris data than the broadcast ephemeris. To support these applications, several institutions, that is the International GPS Services for Geodynamic, the US National Geodetic Survey, and the Geometric Canada have developed post-mission precise orbital services. Precise ephemeris data is based on the GPS data collected at a global GPS network coordinated by the IGS. At present time, precise ephemeris data is available to user with some delay, which varies from 12 hours for the IGS, ultra rapid orbit for about 12 days for the most precise IGS precise orbit. The corresponding accuracies for the two precise orbits are in the order of a few decimeters to 1 decimeter respectively. User can download the precise ephemeris data free of charge from the IGS center. Selective availability was originally designated so that real-time autonomous positioning and navigation with the civilian CA code receivers would be less precise than military P code receivers. Surprisingly, the obtained accuracy was almost the same from both the receivers. To ensure national security, the US Department of Defense implemented the so-called selective availability on Block 2 GPS satellites to deny accurate real-time autonomous positioning to unauthorized users. SA was officially activated on March 1990. SA introduces two types of errors. The first one, called delta error, results from dithering the satellite clock and is common to all users worldwide. The second one, called epsilon error, is an additional slowly varying orbital error. With SA turned on, nominal horizontal and vertical errors can be up to 100 meters and 156 meters, respectively, at the 95% probability level. Figure 2 shows how the horizontal positions of a stationary GPS receiver varies over time, mainly as a result of the effect of SA. Like the range errors due to the ephemeris errors, the range errors due to epsilon errors is almost identical between users of the short separations. Therefore, using differential GPS, that is the DGPS, would overcome the effect of the epsilon error. In fact, DGPS provides better accuracy than the stand-alone P code receiver due to the elimination or the reduction of the common errors, including SA. Following extensive studies, the US government discontinued SA on May 1, 2000, resulting in a much improved autonomous GPS accuracy. With the SA turned off, the nominal autonomous GPS horizontal and vertical accuracies would be in the order of 22 and 33 meters. Satellite and receiver clock errors. The clocks in the satellites are very accurate, that is to about 3 nanoseconds. They do sometimes drift slightly and cause small errors affecting the accuracy of the position. The US Department of Defense monitors the satellite clock using the control segments and can correct any drift that is found. Each GPS Block 2 and Block 2A satellite contains 4 atomic clocks, 2 cesium and 2 rubidium. The newer generation Block 2R satellites carry rubidium clocks only. One of the onboard clocks, primarily a cesium for Block 2 and 2A, is selected to provide the frequency and the timing requirements for generating the GPS signals. The others are backups. The GPS satellites clocks, although highly accurate, are not perfect. Their stability is about 1 to 2 parts of 1013 over a period of 1 day. This means that the satellite clock error is about 8.64 to 17.28 nanoseconds per day. The corresponding range error is 2.59 to 5.18 meters, which can be easily calculated by multiplying the clock error by the speed of light. Cesium clocks tend to behave better over a longer period of time compared with the rubidium clocks. In fact, the stability of the cesium clock over a period of 10 days or more improved to several parts in 1014. The performance of the satellite clock is monitored by the ground control systems. The amount of drift is calculated and transmitted as a part of the navigation message in the form of these coefficients of a second degree polynomial. Satellite clock errors cause additional error to the GPS measurements. These errors are common to all users observing the same satellite and can be removed through differencing between the receivers. Applying the satellite clock corrections in the navigation message can also correct the satellite clock errors. This, however, leaves an error of the order of several nanoseconds, which translate to a range error of a few meters. That is, 1 nanosecond error is equivalent to a range error of about 30 centimeters. GPS receivers, in contrast, use inexpensive crystal clocks which are much less accurate than the satellite clocks. As such, the receiver clock error is much larger than that of the GPS satellite clock. It can, however, be removed through differencing between the satellite, or it can be treated as an additional unknown parameter in the estimation process. Precise external clocks, normally cesium or rubidium, are used in some applications instead of the internal receiver clock. Although the external atomic clock has superior performance compared with the internal receiver clock, they can cost between a few $1,000s for the rubidium clock to about $20,000 for the cesium clocks. The other kind of error is the multipath error. Multipath error is one of the predominant error sources in all GPS applications. Particularly, the multipath error has to be precisely estimated in the global navigation satellite systems, that is called the GNSS, as it is the major error source ranging between 2 to 4 meter that limits the GPS receiver's performance. Whenever a signal is transmitted from a GPS satellite, it follows a multiple number of propagations path on its way to receiving antenna. These multiple signal paths are due to the fact that the signals get reflected back to the antenna of surrounding objects, including the Earth's surface. The GPS receiver tracks both the direct and reflected signals components. The radio waves transmitted from the satellite radiate in all directions. These radio waves, including reflected waves that are reflected off due to various obstacles, differentiated waves, scattering waves, and the direct wave from the satellite to GPS receiver. In this case, since the path lengths of the direct, reflected, diffracted and scattering waves are different, the time each takes to reach the GPS receiver will be different. In addition to the phase of the incoming wave varies because of the reflections. As a result, the receiver receives a superimposition consisting of the several waves having different phase and times of arrival. The generic name of a radio wave in which the time of arrival is retarded in comparison with this direct wave is called a delayed wave. Then the reception environment, characterized by a superposition of delayed waves, is called a multipath propagation environment. In a multipath propagation environment, the received signal is sometimes intensified. This phenomena is called multipath fading, and the signal level of the received waves changes from moment to moment. Multipath is a major error source for the carrier phase and pseudo range measurements. It occurs when the GPS signals arrive at the receiver antenna through different paths. These paths can be direct line of the sight signal and reflected signals from objects surrounding the receiver's antenna. Multipath path distorts the original signal through interference with the reflected signals at the GPS antenna. It affects both the carrier phase and pseudo range measurements. However, its size is much larger in the pseudo range measurements. The size of the carrier phase multipath can reach a maximum value of a quarter of a cycle, that is about 4.8 centimeter for the L1 carrier phase. The pseudo range multipath can theoretically reach several tens of meters for the CA code measurements. However, with new advances in receiver technology, actual pseudo range multipath is reduced dramatically. Examples of such technologies are the strobo correlated. However, with the new advances in receiver technology, actual pseudo range multipath is reduced dramatically. When these multipath mitigation techniques, the pseudo range multipath error is reduced to several meters even in a highly reflective environment. Under the same environment, the presence of multipath errors can be verified using a day-to-day correlation of the estimated residuals. This is because the satellite reflector antenna geometry repeats every sidereal day. However, multipath error in undifferenced pseudo-range measurements can be identified if dual frequency observations are available. A good general multipath model is still not available, mainly because of the varied satellite reflectors antenna geometry. There are, however, several options to reduce the effect of the multipath. The option is to select an observation site with no reflecting objects in the vicinity of the receiver antenna. Another option is to reduce the effect of multipath is to use a chalk ring antenna. A chalk ring antenna is a device on a ground plane that has several concentric metal hoops which attenuate the reflected signals. As the GPS signal is right-handed circularity polarized while the reflected signal is left-handed, reducing the effect of multipath may also be achieved by using an antenna with a matching polarization to the GPS. The disadvantage of this option, however, is that the polarization of the multipath signal becomes right-handed again if it twice reflected. A GPS antenna receives the incoming satellite signals and then converts its energy into an electric current, which can be handled by the GPS receiver. The point at which the GPS signal is received is called the antenna phase center. Generally, the antenna phase center does not coincide with the physical, that is the geometrical center of the antenna. It varies depending on the elevation and the azimuth of the GPS satellites as well as the intensity of the observed signal. As a result, additional range errors can be expected. The size of the error caused by the antenna phase center variation depends on the antenna type, and it is typically in the order of a few centimeters. It is, however, difficult to model the antenna phase center variation, and therefore care has to be taken when selecting the antenna type. For short baseline with the same types of antenna at each end, the phase center error can be cancelled if the antenna are oriented in the same direction. Mixing different types of antennas or using different orientations will not cancel the error. Due to its small size, this error is neglected in most of the practical GPS application. It should be pointed out that the phase center error should be different on L1 and L2 carrier phase observations. This can affect the accuracy of the ionosphere field linear combination, particularly when observing short baseline. As mentioned before, for short time baseline, the errors are highly correlated over distance and cancelled sufficiently through differencing. Therefore, using a single frequency might be more appropriate for short baseline in the static mode. Another kind of error is the receiver measurement, and that is called as the receiver measurement noise. The receiver measurement noise results from the limitations of the receiver's electronic system. A good GPS system should have a minimum noise level. Generally, a GPS receiver performs a self-test when the user turns it on. However, for higher cost precise GPS systems, it might be important for the user to perform the system evaluation. Two tests can be performed for evaluating a GPS receiver. Number 1, zero baseline, and 2, short baseline test. A zero baseline test is used to evaluate the receiver's performance. The test involves using one antenna preamplifier followed by a signal splitter that feeds 2 or more GPS receivers. Several receiver problems such as interchannel biases and cyclic slips can be detected with this test. As one antenna is used, the baseline solution should be 0. In other words, any non-zero value is attributed to the receiver noise. Although the zero baseline test provides useful information on the receiver performance, it does not provide any information on the antennas or the preamplifier. noises. The contribution of the receiver measurements noise to the range errors will depend very much on the quality of the GPS receiver. Typical average value for the range errors due to the receiver measurements noise is of the order of 0.6 meters. To evaluate the actual field performance of a GPS system, it is necessary to include the antenna preamplifier noise component. This can be done using short baseline of a few meters apart observed on 2 consecutive days. In this case, the double difference residuals of 1 day would contain the system noise and multipath effect. All other errors would cancel sufficiently. As the multipath signature repeats every sidereal ray, differencing the double difference residuals between the 2 consecutive days eliminates the effect of multipath and leaves only the system noise. Another kind of error is the ionospheric delay. At the uppermost part of the Earth's atmosphere, ultraviolet and X-ray radiations coming from the sun interact with the gas molecules and atoms. These interactions result in gas ionization. A large number of free negatively charged electrons and positively charged atoms and molecules. Such a region of the atmosphere where gas ionization takes place is called the ionosphere. It extends from an altitude of approximately 50 kilometers to about 1000 kilometers or even more. In fact, the upper limit of the ionospheric region is not clearly defined. The electron density within the ionospheric region is not consistent. It changes with altitude. As such, the ionospheric region is divided into subregions or layers according to the electron density. These layers are named as D, that is the region lying between 50 to 90 kilometers, E 90 to 100 kilometers, F 140 to 210 kilometers, and F2 210 to 1000 kilometers respectively, with F2 usually being the layer of maximum electron density. The altitude and the thickness of these layers vary with time as a result of the change in the sun's radiation and the Earth's magnetic field. For example, the F1 layer disappears during the night and is more pronounced in the summer than in the winters. The question that may arise is how would the ionosphere affect the GPS measurements? The ionosphere is a dispersive medium, which means it bends the GPS radio signals and changes its speed as it passes through the various ionospheric layers to reach a GPS receiver. Bending the GPS signal's path causes a negligible range error, particularly if the satellite elevation angle is greater than 5 minutes. It is a change in the propagation speed that causes a significant range error and therefore should be accounted for. The ionospheric speed of the propagation of the carrier phase beyond the speed of the light, while it slows down the PRN code and the navigation message by the same amount. That is, the receiver satellite distance will be too short if measured by the carrier phase and too long if measured by the codes compared with the actual distance. The ionospheric delay is proportional to the number of free electrons along the GPS signal path, called the total electron content, that is TEC. TEC, however, depends on a number of factors, that is, number 1, the time of day when the electron density level reaches a daily maximum in early afternoon and a minimum around midnight at local time. Number 2, the time of year, that is when the electron density levels are higher in winter than in summers. And number 3, the 11-year solar cycle when the electron density level reach a maximum value approximately every 11 years, which corresponds to peak in the solar flare activities known as the solar cycle peak in 2001. And number 4, The geographic location means the electron density levels are minimum in mid-latitude regions and highly irregular in the polar and equatorial regions. As the ionosphere is a dispersive medium, it causes a delay that is frequency dependent. The lower the frequency, the greater the delay. That is, the L2 ionospheric delay is greater than that of L1. Generally, ionospheric delays is of the order of 5 meters to 15 meters, but can reach over 150 meters under extreme solar activities at midday and near the horizon. This discussion shows that the electron density level in the ionosphere varies with time and location. It is, however, highly correlated over relatively short distances, and therefore differentiating the GPS observations between user of short separation can remove the major part of the ionospheric delay. Taking advantage of the ionospheric dispersive nature, the ionospheric delay can be determined with a high degree of accuracy by combining the P-code pseudo-range measurements on both L1 and L2. Unfortunately, however, the P-code is accessible by authorized users only. With the addition of a second CA code on L2 as part of the modernization program, this limitation will be removed. The L1 and L2 carrier phase measurements may be combined in a similar fashion to determine the variations in the ionospheric delay, not the absolute value. User with dual frequency receivers can combine the L1 and L2 carrier phase measurements to generate the ionospheric free linear combination to remove the ionospheric delay. The disadvantage of the ionospheric free linear combination, however, are: number one, it has a relatively higher observation noise, and two, it does not preserve the integer nature of the ambiguity parameters. As such, the ionosphere free linear combination is not recommended for short baseline. Single frequency user cannot take advantage of the dispersive nature of the ionosphere. They can, however, use one of the empirical ionospheric model to correct up to 60% of the delay. The most widely used model is the Kolobacher model, whose coefficients are transmitted as part of the navigation message. Another solution for the users with single frequency GPS receivers is to use corrections from regional networks. Such corrections can be received in real time through communication links. The next kind of error in GPS is the tropospheric delay. It is the electrically neutral atmospheric region that extends up to 50 kilometers from the surface of the earth. The troposphere is a non-dispersive medium for radio frequencies below 15 gigahertz. As a result, it delays the GPS carriers and codes identically. That is, the major satellite to receiver range will be longer than the actual geometric range, which means that a distance between the two receivers will be longer than the actual distance. Unlike the ionospheric delay, the tropospheric delay cannot be removed by combining the L1 and L2 observations. This is mainly because the tropospheric delay is frequency independent. The tropospheric delay depends on the temperature, pressure, and humidity along with the signal path through the troposphere. Signals from satellites at low elevation angles travel a longer path through the troposphere than those at higher elevation angle. Therefore, the tropospheric delay is minimized at the user's zenith and maximized near the horizon. Tropospheric delay result in value of about 2.3 meters at zenith, where the satellites which are below the where the satellite is directly overhead, and about 9.3 meters for a 15-degree elevation angle, and about 20 to 28 meters for a 5-degree elevation angle. Tropospheric delay may be broken into two components, dry and wet. The dry component represents about 90% of the delay and can be predicted to a high degree of accuracy using mathematical models. The wet components of the tropospheric delay depends on the water vapor along the GPS signal path. Unlike the dry component, the wet component is not easy to predict. Several mathematical models use surface meteorological measurements, that is atmospheric pressure, temperature and partial water vapor pressure to compute the wet component. However, unfortunately, the wet component is weakly correlated with surface meteorological data, which limits its prediction accuracy. It was found that using default meteorological data, that is 1010 millibar for atmospheric pressure, 20 degrees centigrade temperature and 50% for relative humidity, it gives satisfactory results in most cases. The satellite geometry, which is another major source of errors in the GPS data, is of paramount importance. The various types of errors and biases discussed earlier directly affect the accuracy of the computed GPS positions. Proper modeling of these errors and biases and appropriate combinations of the GPS observations will improve the positioning accuracy. However, these are not only the factors that affect the GPS accuracy. The satellite geometry, which represents the geometric locations of the GPS satellite as seen by the receiver, plays a very important role in the total positioning accuracy. The better is satellite geometry strength, the better the obtained positioning accuracy. As such, the overall positioning accuracy of GPS is measured by the combined effect of the unmodeled measurement errors and the effect of the satellite geometry. Good satellite geometry is obtained when the satellites are spread out in the sky. In general, the more spread out the satellites are in the sky, the better the satellite geometry and vice versa. The figure shows a simple graphical explanation of the satellite geometry effect using two satellites, assuming a two-dimensional case. In such a case, the receiver will be located at the intersection of two arcs of circle. Each has a radius equal to the receiver's satellite distance and center at the satellite itself. Because of the measurement errors, the measured receiver satellite distance will not be exact and an uncertainty region on both sides of the estimated distance will be present. Combining the measurements from the two satellites, it can be seen that the receiver will in fact be located somewhere within the uncertainty area, the hashed area. It is known from statistics that for a certain probability level, if the size of the uncertainty area is small, the computed receiver's position will be precise. As shown in the figure 6a, if the two satellites are far apart, the size of the uncertainty area will be small, resulting in good satellite geometry. Similarly, if the two satellites are close to each other, the size of the uncertainty area will be large, resulting in poor satellite geometry. The satellite geometry effect can be measured by a single dimension number called the dilution of precision, that is called DOP. The lower the value of the DOP numbers, the better the geometric strength and vice versa. The DOP number is computed based on the relative receiver satellite geometry at an instance, that is, it requires the availability of both the receivers and the satellite coordinates. Approximate values for the coordinates are generally sufficient, through which means that the DOP value can be determined without making any measurement. As a result of the relative motion of the satellites and the receivers, the value of the DOP will change over time. The change in the DOP value, however, will generally be slow, except in the following two cases. Number one, a satellite is rising or falling as seen by the user's receiver, and number 2, there is an obstruction between the receiver and the satellite, that is when the passing under a bridge. In practice, various DOP forms are used depending on the user's need. For example, for the general GPS positions purposes, a user may be interested in examining the effect of the satellite geometry on the quality of the resulting three-dimensional position, that is latitude, longitude and altitude. This could be done by maximizing the value of the position dilution of the precision. In other words, PDOP represents the contributions of the satellite geometry to the 3D positioning accuracy. PDOP can be broken into two components, horizontal dilution of precision and the vertical dilution of precision. The former represents the satellite geometry effect on the horizontal components of the position accuracy, while the latter represents the satellite geometry effect on the vertical components of the positioning accuracy. Because the GPS user can track only those satellites above the horizon, VDOP will always be larger than HDOP. As a result, the GPS height solution is expected to be less precise than the horizontal solution. The VDOP value could be improved by supplementing GPS with other sensors. For example, the pseudolights. Other commonly used DOP forms include the time dilution of the precision and the geometric dilution of precision. GDOP represents the combined effect of the PDOP and the TDOP. To ensure high precision GPS positioning, it is recommended that a suitable observation time be selected to obtain the highest possible accuracy. A PDOP of 5 or less is usually recommended. In fact, the actual PDOP value is usually much less than 5, with a typical average value in the neighborhood of 2. Most GPS software packages have the ability to predict the satellite geometry based on the user's approximate location and the approximate satellite location obtained from a recent almanac file for the GPS constellations. The almanac file is obtained as part of the navigation message and can be downloaded free of charge over the internet, that is from US Coast Guard Navigation Center. Another kind of error is the user equivalent range error. It has been shown that the GPS positioning accuracy is measured by the combined effect of the unmodeled measurement errors and the effect of the satellite geometry. The unmodeled measurement errors will certainly be different from one satellite to another satellite, mainly because of the various view angle. In addition, the ranging errors for the various satellites will have a certain degree of similarity. To rigorously determine the expected GPS positioning accuracy, we may apply an estimation technique such as the least square method. The least square method estimates the user's position, that is location, as well as the covariance matrix. The latter tells us how well the user's position is determined. In fact, the covariance matrix reflects the combined effect of the measurement errors and the satellite geometry. A more simplified way of examining the GPS positioning accuracy may be achieved through the introduction of the user equivalent range error. Assuming that measurement errors for all the satellites are identical and independent, then a quantity known as the UERE may be defined as the root sum square of the various errors and biases. Multiplying the UERE by the appropriate DOP value produces the expected precision of the GPS positioning at the 1% level. To obtain the precision at the 2% level, sometimes referred to as the approximately 95% of the time, we multiply the result by a factor of 2. For example, assuming that the UERE is 8 meters for the standalone GPS receiver and taking a typical value of the HDOP as 1.5, then the 95% positional accuracy will be 8 into 1.5 into 2, that is equal to 24 meters. Hope you have enjoyed the episode. Thank you for a patience listening.